After the fever, the days seemed sharper. Colors had edges they had not before. The red of the stone, the bleached blue of the sky, the white gleam of dawn's hilt. Jon felt them all more keenly, as if some film had been stripped from the world while Arthur lay burning and muttering of wolves and dragons. Perhaps it had. Truth had a way of scraping things raw. He moved through the familiar forms in the courtyard, blade-cutting arcs through the hot air. The motions lived in his muscles. Cut, turn, step, guard. His feet knew the treacherous dips in the stone, the loose rock near the wall. He corrected for them without thought now. Again, Arthur called, though Jon had not faltered. Jon did not argue. He flowed back into the first stance, shoulders loose, sword tipped low. Dawn lay on its usual stone, wrapped in plain leather, but he felt its presence like a second gaze. When he lifted his own blade, the ghost of its weight lay over his wrist. He thought of the truth laid between them in the hall by firelight. Lyanna Stark, Rhaegar Targaryen, Jon Snow, born of both and belonging wholly to neither. The knowledge sat in him like new steel in a scabbard that had grown used to wood, heavier, more dangerous, not yet worn smooth. "Your mind is wandering," Arthur said. "I can see it in your shoulders. You told me to feel, not think," Jon replied, breathless. "I told you to feel your enemy," Arthur said, "not drowned princes and dead girls." Jon's jaw tightened. He finished the sequence anyway, driving the last cut a fraction harder than he should. The jolt up his arm served as its own rebuke. He lowered the sword, chest heaving. Sweat dampened his hair, darkening the curls. Arthur stepped from the shade, taking in his stance with a critical eye. "Again," he said, softer now. "And this time, remember that you are not only their son, you are yourself. Let that guide your hand, not ghosts." Jon wanted to snap that ghosts had guided his whole life, that he had slept under their promises and eaten on their oaths. Instead, he swallowed the words and did as he was told. When the lesson ended at last, the sun had slid past its zenith. Heat lay over the tower like a blanket. Jon sank onto the low wall, gulping water from the skin, feeling his pulse hammer behind his eyes. Arthur joined him, moving more slowly than he once had. The fever's touch lingered, leaving him leaner, the silver at his temples more stark. Yet his gaze was as flint-hard as ever. "You are faster," he said, "stronger. You listen better than you did at 12, which is not saying much, but we take victories where we can." Jon wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "You told me who I am," he said, "or what made me. You cannot expect me to move through the same drills and never think of it." "I expect you to let it sharpen you, not dull you," Arthur replied. "A sword weighed down with decoration is less useful than a plain one. Bloodlines are decoration, Jon. Edges are made of training. And choices." Jon stared out over the mountains. "You kept me here to keep me alive," he said. "I understand that, but you have shown me the map, told me the names. I know what lies beyond these rocks. How much longer do you expect me to watch the world from a crack in your wall?" Arthur did not answer at once. The wind tugged at their shirts, bringing the faint scent of rain from distant valleys. "When I lay raving last night," Arthur said at last, "I walked again in halls I had hoped never to see. The Red Keep, the throne room, the courtyard before the Tower of Joy. I saw what came of letting princes loose upon the world without tempering." "I am not him," Jon said. "I am not Rhaegar." "I know," Arthur said. "You are worse in some ways." He chased dreams and forgot people. "You care for people so much you will shoot an arrow at a man's horse just to keep him from breaking his own neck." His mouth twitched. "It is inconvenient." "I will not apologize for that," Jon said. "I do not ask you to," Arthur replied. "I ask you to be ready for what follows from it. The world beyond this tower will not thank you for your mercy. It will weigh your every act and use it as it pleases. If I take you down now, half-honed, it will snap you up and grind you either into a banner or into dust." Jon's fingers tightened on the water skin. "And if you keep me here until I am old and gray?" Arthur huffed. then I will have failed you in another way. No, the time is coming. I can feel it. The Martell riders on our path. The way rumors of ghosts in white cloaks stir even now. We cannot sit on this mountain forever and pretend the world does not climb. So, Jon pressed. So, Arthur said, we leave. Not today. Not tomorrow. Soon. And not north. Not yet. He looked south, where the mountains fell toward the unseen sea. First, we go home. Jon knew what he meant before he said it. Starfall, he breathed. Arthur nodded once. The road to Starfall unwound like a memory Arthur had folded away and now reluctantly unpacked. They left the tower at dawn, packs laden, goats mewling in confused protest as Jon opened the pen and let them loose. The animals would fend for themselves on the sparse scrub. The tower, stripped of their presence and the scant clutter of their lives, felt suddenly hollow. You are certain we will come back? Jon asked, pausing on the threshold, hand on the rough stone of the doorframe. Arthur looked at the empty hearth, the bed where Lyanna had once cried out, the table where Dawn had rested 100 nights. No, he said, but if we do not, it will be because you no longer need it. He closed the door. No lock, no bar. The tower had its own ways of keeping secrets. They took the mountain path in silence. Jon could have walked it blindfolded, feet finding familiar holds without thought. Yet every turn looked different now that he knew it might be for the last time. The rock where he had broken his wrist at 12, trying to leap farther than sense allowed. The twisted pine where Arthur had once strung a rope to teach him balance. The ledge from which he had looked north and named himself Snow. Below, the valleys opened like cupped hands. The air grew thicker, the heat heavier. By midday, they had left the worst of the heights behind. The red mountains became hills, then rough, sun-blasted ridges. The wind carried scents Jon seldom tasted on the peak. Orange blossom, tilled earth, the faint brine of the distant sea. They passed through small villages where people knew Arthur as Ser Armand or Ser Anders or half a dozen other names. An irregular but familiar presence who traded odd jobs of sword and stone for salt and grain. Jon watched them watching Arthur, wondering if any of them saw what lay beneath the dust and beard. At night, they camped under low shrubs or in shallow caves, firelight throwing their shadows large on stone. Arthur spoke more on those nights than Jon had ever heard him in the tower. Perhaps the open sky loosened his tongue. Perhaps the looming shape of his childhood home on the horizon made him smaller, younger. Starfall sits on the cliff where the Torrentine meets the Sea of Dorne, he said one night, poking the fire. Our maester used to say the river wore the rock into that shape, just so we would have somewhere dramatic to build. You speak of we as if Starfall were a person, Jon said. It is, Arthur replied. Any castle worth its salt is. It remembers. It carries grudges. It rewards those who treat it well. His mouth slanted. And it punishes the careless. Like men, Jon murmured. Like men, Arthur agreed. On the third day, they saw the river. The Torrentine carved a green ribbon through the desert, its banks lush where the rest of the world baked. Jon had seen water enough in mountain streams and the rare deep pool, but this was different. Broad and restless, its surface broken by white foam and the shadows of unseen rocks. Small fishing boats dotted it, their sails patched and bright. Can you swim? Arthur asked. Like a stone, Jon said. Arthur grunted. We will remedy that. Starfall has been watching men drown for centuries. Best not to give it another. By the time the castle itself came into view, the sun was sliding toward the horizon. Starfall rose from the cliff like a piece of the Dawnstone it was named for, pale and elegant, its towers slender but strong. The walls caught the dying light and held it, glowing faintly as the sky darkened. Jon reined in without meaning to. For a long moment he simply stared. He had seen drawings in books, Maester's careful inkings of towers and battlements, but no ink could capture this. The roar of the sea below, the constant crash of waves against stone, the cry of gulls wheeling overhead. The way the wind changed, carrying salt and something heavier, older. Home, Arthur said quietly. The word sat oddly in Jon's ears. He looked at the man beside him, at the single figure on the road and the pale mass of stone before them. "Yours," Jon said. "Not mine." Arthur's gaze flicked to him. "Not yet," he said. "But we shall see." They rode on, hooves drumming on the packed dirt of the coastal road. As they approached the gate, Jon felt eyes on them from the battlements. Guards leaned over parapets, hands on spears. Some frowned. One straightened abruptly, pointing. The portcullis rattled. A man in a purple-edged cloak stepped forward, hand upraised. "Halt," he called. "State your—" His words died. Arthur had pushed back his hood. The fading light caught the angle of his jaw, the line of his nose, the familiar set of his eyes. The beard was rougher than in old days, the hair streaked with more silver, but the man beneath was the same. The guard stared as if he had seen a ghost. "Ser Arthur," he breathed. Arthur Dayne, who had once watched princes crowned and buried, who had fought Robert Baratheon's finest on 100 fields and held the passes of the Prince's Pass against numbers that should have overwhelmed him, inclined his head with the faintest hint of embarrassment. "Yes," he said, "I seem to have proven hardier than rumor allowed." The courtyard was smaller than Jon had imagined, hemmed in by high walls that smelled of salt and centuries. The air here was cooler than the road, touched by the sea's breath. Torches flared in the gathering dusk, their flames bending in the gusts that knifed up from the cliffs. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the purple-cloaked guard dropped to one knee so quickly his mail clattered. "My lord," he said, voice hoarse. "We thought you dead." Arthur finished for him. "Yes. I have been told I am not as ghostly as I ought to be. Please rise, Torrhen. You will make my bones ache in sympathy." Torrhen blushed and lurched to his feet, helm slightly askew. "Lady Illyria must be told," he said. "At once. She wept for you, Ser, when the raven came from King's Landing. When we heard of the tower—" "I know," Arthur said. Something passed across his face. An old grief briefly unmasked. Jon looked quickly away, feeling as if he had intruded on a private wound. Other faces crowded the courtyard now. Stable hands, kitchen girls, men-at-arms with swords half-drawn just in case the vision vanished and they had to fight whatever trick had replaced it. Their eyes went from Arthur to Jon and back again. "Who's the boy?" someone murmured. "My squire," Arthur said easily. "Jon, mind your manners, he bites." Jon quirked a corner of his mouth despite himself. A ripple of laughter eased the strangled silence. Torrhen barked orders. Stable hands surged forward to take their horses. Jon surrendered his mount reluctantly. His legs felt oddly unsteady when he set foot on Starfall stone. It was different from the mountain, smoother, worn by generations of boots. He wondered how many dead Danes had walked this very courtyard. "Ser Arthur." The new voice cut through the noise like dawn through common steel. Jon turned. She stood at the foot of the keep steps, cloak thrown over a simple gown, hair caught back in a hastily tied ribbon. She was not tall, but something in the set of her shoulders made the space around her larger. The family resemblance was there in the sharpness of her cheekbones, the shape of her eyes, though she had softened where Arthur had grown all planes and edges. "Illyria," Arthur said. For a moment, neither moved. The courtyard seemed to hold its breath again. Then she came down the steps fast, skirts gathered in one hand, and struck him in the chest with the other. The blow made a sound like a slap against armor, though Arthur wore none. He rocked back a step. "You bastard," she said, voice shaking. "You utter bastard." Arthur's lips twitched. "That is technically inaccurate," he said. "Our parents were wed before." She hit him again, then clutched at the front of his shirt, fingers twisting in the fabric. 8 years, she hissed. 8 years, Arthur. We lit candles for you. We carved your name on the wall beside Ashara's. Mother died with your sword on her lap. Father went to his grave thinking his son had died with a madman on his throne. And you, her voice broke, the anger shattered under the weight of something heavier. She dragged him down into a fierce, graceless embrace. Jon looked away, throat tight. He had never seen Arthur held like that. The knight's arms came up slowly, uncertainly, then wrapped around his sister with a care that seemed almost afraid to break her. "I thought it kinder," Arthur said into her hair. The words sounded feeble even to him. "If I lived, it would bring trouble." Questions. "You had lost Ashera." "I could not." "Idiot," Illyria muttered into his shoulder. "I would have traded a dozen questions for one more brother at my table." When she drew back at last, her eyes were bright and fierce. She scrubbed at them with the heel of her hand, as if angry at the dampness. "And you bring me another fool?" she demanded, turning that gaze on Jon. "Who is this crow-headed creature hiding behind your horse?" Jon straightened, heat rising in his cheeks. He stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Jon," he said. "Jon Snow." Her brows shot up. "Snow?" she repeated. "In Dorne? Has the world turned upside down while you were playing Ghost, Arthur?" "In certain ways, yes," Arthur said dryly. "He is my ward. I took him in after the war. His family is gone. He has been more trouble than he is worth ever since." "Liar," Illyria said without missing a beat. "You would not have brought him here if that were so." She circled Jon once, taking him in from head to toe. He fought the urge to fidget. "Eyes like a Stark," she said. "Hair like—" She stopped, something flickering across her face. "Like trouble." She knows, Jon thought, pulse quickening. Or she guesses. Illyria's mouth curved, though not unkindly. "Well, Jon Snow," she said, "welcome to Starfall. You may as well make yourself useful. We are short on boys to carry buckets and full up on ghosts." Jon inclined his head. "Yes, my lady." "Don't call me that," she snapped, though without heat. "If you are Arthur's, you are mine. Lady makes me feel like mother. Illyria will do. Or ally if you must." Arthur cleared his throat. "And Dawn?" he asked, nodding toward the keep. Illyria's eyes softened again. "Where you left it," she said. "Above the hearth. Father would not let it be moved. He said the sword of the morning might return for it, even if the man did not." "Then I have one less theft to commit," Arthur murmured. They went inside together, brother and sister, Jon trailing a step behind. The courtyard slowly returned to motion. Yet even as the grooms led the horses away and the guards resumed their posts, Jon felt the eyes on his back. "Snow," he heard someone whisper. "In Dorne." The great hall smelled of salt and smoke and something faintly floral Jon could not name. It was narrower than the grand spaces Arthur had described in King's Landing, but taller, its ceiling lost in shadows among heavy beams. Banners hung from the walls, pale purple with the falling star of Dayne, faded at the edges where sun had touched them through narrow windows. The stone underfoot was polished smooth by generations of boots. And above the hearth, in a place where any other house might hang its sigil or its most prized hunting trophy, Dawn rested. Jon had seen the sword unsheathed. He had held it, yet seeing it there, mounted horizontally on dark wood, did something different to him. Here, it was not the private blade of a man on a mountain. It was a symbol, a story hammered into metal and hung for all to see. Arthur stopped a few paces away. His face, always controlled, shifted through several expressions so quickly Jon could not catch them all. Longing, guilt, a flicker of pride, sorrow. "Father insisted," Illyria said quietly, coming to stand at his shoulder. "When the raven came from the capital, when they sent your white cloak back without you, he refused to believe it. He had the maester send for the sword. Said if you were dead, dawn would darken. It never did." "A sword is just steel," Arthur said, though his voice was thick. "It does not know one way or the other." "For once," Illyria replied, "I will allow myself to be the sentimental one in this hall." He huffed a faint laugh. Jon stepped closer to the hearth, feeling the heat on his face. The fire below was banked low, but its glow licked the polished stone. Dawn's pale blade captured that light and held it without warping, a strip of mourning pinned against the wall. He remembered the way it had felt in his grip on the ledge above the tower, the way his dreams seemed to press closer when he held it. "Will you take it down?" he asked Arthur. Arthur's gaze remained fixed on the sword. "Not yet," he said. "Let it rest a little longer. It has been a better guardian of this hall than I these past years. I will not yank it from its post like a thief in the night." "You would not be a thief," Illyria said. "Oh, I would," Arthur replied. "Of illusions, at least. As long as that sword hangs above your hearth, Starfall can pretend that the man who wielded it died a clean, noble death defending a prince's honor. If I take it and walk out again, you are left with the truth. That your brother lived in a tower while kings rose and fell, hiding a boy the world would have killed or used." His eyes flicked to Jon, then away. Illyria's jaw tightened. "Do you think so little of me?" she asked. "That I would cling to a story over the man in front of me? Over the boy you brought?" Arthur's shoulders sagged. "I think," he said slowly, "that stories are comfort, men are trouble. I have brought you both, and I am sorry." "Idiot," she said again, but there was no anger in it. She reached up, fingers brushing the sword's hilt lightly. "Starfall has always had more trouble than comfort. One more piece will not break us." She turned to Jon. "You," she said, "do you know what that is?" "Dawn," he said, "the sword of the morning. Forged from the heart of a fallen star, or so the tales say." "And what else?" she pressed. He met her gaze. "A promise," he said, "to stand between darkness and those who cannot, to serve the realm, not only the man who wears its crown." Arthur's eyes widened, just slightly. Illyria's mouth twitched. "He has been listening to you at least," she said. "He has been arguing with me," Arthur corrected. "That is what listening properly looks like," she replied. Jon looked between them, feeling an odd warmth in his chest. He had expected, in some corner of his mind, to walk into Starfall and find his place instantly, to feel something in the stone answer some hollow in him. The reality was Messier. The castle was beautiful and strange, full of ghosts and expectations and people who looked at him as if trying to place a half-remembered face. Yet in this hall, with sword and siblings and fire, he felt something he had not known he needed. Not belonging, not yet, but the possibility of it. Starfall had its own rhythms, its own drills and duties, and Jon was not spared any of them. "You may have swung a sword on a mountain," Illyria said, "but you have never mucked a Starfall stable. We shall see what sort of man that makes you." In the mornings, he woke to the rush roar of the sea below and the cries of gulls, the air sharp with salt. He broke his fast on coarse bread and olives in the hall with squires and men-at-arms, listening as they gossiped of local disputes. The price of dates in the market town, a shepherd's complaint about poachers, a dispute over a patch of irrigated land. Then came training. The yard at Starfall was smaller than the open space by the tower, but livelier. Squires jostled for space at the practice posts, laughing and cursing. Men-at-arms checked armor, the clink of mail and the thump of shields a constant counterpoint. The weapons rack held spears, short swords, and the long, slightly curved blades Dornish riders favored. Jon stepped into that space like a stone dropped into a stream. The flow of it adjusted, but not without eddies. "Snow," one lad said, eyeing him with open curiosity. "Truly? That is a northern name." The boy's hair was sun-bleached at the tips, his skin darker than Jon's. A smattering of freckles crossed his nose. "So I am told," Jon replied. "Joss Dayne," the boy said. "My father is Lord Edric's younger brother's cousin, or something like that. Our maester says the family tree is more tangle than trunk." He grinned. "You fight." "A little," Jon said. Arthur, who had been conferring with the master-at-arms, turned at that. "A little," he repeated. "Enough to make me regret teaching you, if you get killed showing off. Joss, pair with him." They took the center of the yard, surrounded by a loose ring of boys who suddenly found excuses to pause their own drills. Joss bounced on the balls of his feet, practice blade in hand. Jon settled into his stance, feeling the difference in the ground. The stone here was flatter than the mountain, less treacherous. The sea breeze slid over it, carrying faint spray. "Do you play at being a knight up on that mountain?" Joss asked, grinning. "Hitting shadows and calling them kings?" "Sometimes," Jon said. The shadows hit back more politely than most men. Laughter rippled around them. The teasing in Joss's eyes sharpened into something more competitive. Arthur's voice cut through the noise. "Begin." Joss came in quick, spear-fast despite the short sword. Jon met the first series of blows easily, letting muscle memory carry him. The other boy favored big, looping cuts, meant as much to show off as to land. Jon watched his feet. "Balance," Arthur's voice murmured in his mind. "Not strength. Watch where his weight falls, not where his blade goes." He saw it. Joss's habit of leaning just a fraction too far forward on his left lunges, of leaving his back foot behind. Jon let him press for a moment, absorbing the blows on his practice blade, letting his own feet slide over the smooth stone until he could feel the pattern. Then he stepped into it. When Joss lunged again, overcommitting, Jon pivoted around the extended arm and tapped him smartly between the shoulder blades with the flat of his blade. Joss yelped as his own momentum sent him stumbling. He caught himself before he fell, barely. Snickers broke out around the ring. "Again," Joss said quickly, cheeks darkening. They did. Joss adapted faster than some Jon had faced. He shortened his swings, kept his feet more under him. Jon, used to Arthur's precise, almost surgical style, found the Dornish boy's unpredictability oddly refreshing. There was a joy in how he moved, a willingness to try a foolish feint just to see if it worked. They clashed for several minutes before Arthur called a halt. Both were sweating, breathing hard, but neither had taken more than a stinging tap. "Not bad," the master-at-arms grunted. "For goats." Joss grinned at Jon, panting. "Not bad for snow," he said. "I thought mountain boys would be slow. I thought Dornish boys would be drunk," Jon said with a steady face. The Yard laughed. The master-at-arms snorted. "He'll do," he said to Arthur. "We'll knock the mountain out of his shoulders and put some proper Starfall into his stance." Arthur shook his head. "Leave some mountain," he said. It taught him to watch his feet. "You reach too far, he'll put you in the dust." Jon heard the pride under the dryness and felt a warmth he did not show. He wiped his sword down with an oiled cloth, listening as the other squires chattered about him as if he were not there. "Snow, ward of Ser Arthur. Looks like a northern lordling with his mouth shut. Wonder who his father was." Jon tightened his grip on the blade for a moment, then forced himself to relax. The name Rhaegar burned behind his teeth. He swallowed it. Snow, he thought. Let that be enough. If the yard belonged to the squires and the hall to the house, the library belonged to ghosts. Jon found himself drawn there in the evenings, after the drills and chores, after the simple evening meal, when the castle settled into the soft clatter of tankards and the murmur of quiet conversation. He climbed the narrow stair to the round tower that smelled of dust and parchment and ink. The maester, an old man with watery eyes and a chain that clinked when he moved, had eyed Jon skeptically the first night. "Most boys your age prefer the yard to the page," he had said. "Your Ser Arthur certainly did. I thought I would never see him with a book that was not a tourney list." Jon smiled slightly. "Ser Arthur put a blade in my hand before a quill," he said. "But he also put a map under my nose and told me to learn where I stood. I thought to finish the lesson." The maester had softened at that, just a little. "Maps, is it? Very well. Try not to spill any more candle wax on the neck. It has suffered enough." So Jon studied. He unrolled the familiar map of Westeros and laid it beside others he had not seen. A detailed sketch of Dorne's principality, a faded parchment showing the free cities, a cramped, dense genealogy of House Targaryen written in a scribe's careful hand. He traced the line from Aegon the Conqueror down through his sisters and their offspring, through Daeron and Baelor and Aegon the Unworthy, through the Blackfyre rebellions Arthur had mentioned only in passing. He found Rhaegar's name, neat and small, with branches extending. Elia of Dorne. Rhaenys. Aegon. No line extended from his own birth. Of course not. The maester who had inked this had never known he existed. Still, Jon's finger hovered over the space where the line might have gone. "Do you intend to draw it in?" Arthur asked quietly from the doorway. Jon did not start. He had heard the faint tread on the stair, the soft clink of the maester's chain as he moved elsewhere. Arthur stepped into the candlelight, shadows clinging to the planes of his face. "It would make the chart more accurate," Jon said. "Maester Calero would appreciate that. Maester Calero would have apoplexy and send a raven to Sunspear, Winterfell, and King's Landing," Arthur replied. "Accuracy is not always our friend." Jon let his hand fall. "It feels strange," he admitted, "to see my father's name there, neat and tidy. To know that no ink records what came after. That I live in the space between lines." Arthur came to stand beside him, gaze traveling over the page. "There are many lives that never make it onto parchment," he said. "Farmers, sailors, thieves. The world is built more on their bones than on those of the men with names in red ink. Yet it is the red names that set the fires," Jon said. "Sometimes," Arthur allowed, "sometimes it is the black ones. Sometimes it is the space between where no one thought to look." Jon's finger drifted to the north of the map, to the little direwolf sigil that marked Winterfell. "Do you think they know?" he asked. "The Starks? My uncle? Does he ever look at a boy in his hall and think, if the world had turned differently, there would be another at my table?" Arthur was quiet a long moment. "I think," he said slowly, "that Eddard Stark looks at his children and sees your mother's eyes in one, your stubbornness in another. I think he feels the shape of the promise he made every time he sits in his hall and knows you are not there. And I think he thanks whatever gods he keeps that you are far from a king's hand." Jon swallowed. "I dream of them," he said. "Sometimes. Faces I do not know around a long table in a hall of gray stone. A girl with hair like fire who laughs too loudly. A boy with a sword too big for him. A man with a long face who watches them all as if he is waiting for the winter to fall on their heads." Arthur's mouth tightened. "The blood remembers," he murmured, "even when men try to make it forget." Jon looked down at the parchment. His own name was nowhere on it. Yet the lines in the ink had shaped his life more than anything else. "I am tired of being shaped by people who never held me," he said. Arthur turned his head. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Jon said, "that every choice my parents made, every vow you and Lord Stark swore, every decision of a mad king and a rebel lord, has narrowed my path. I have been hidden and honed and shoved into towers because of their ghosts. I would like to choose something for myself." Arthur's gaze flicked to the map. "And what choice would that be?" he asked. "If I spread the world before you and said, 'Pick a road,' which would you take?" Jon's finger moved almost of its own accord, tracing the line from Starfall northward, through the Prince's Pass, past King's Landing, over the neck, to that little direwolf. "Winterfell," he said. "The wall, the woods with faces. I would see them. I would stand where my mother stood. I would look upon the man who lied to keep me breathing and tell him I know why. And then," Arthur asked, "when you have looked your uncle in the eye and tasted the snow?" Jon swallowed. "Then I do not know. Perhaps I come back. Perhaps I take ship. Perhaps I join the watch. Perhaps I die on the road." He looked up. "But at least it will be my feet that walk it, not my father's shadow pushing me along." Arthur studied him in the flickering light. "You are not ready," he said at last. "Not yet, but you are closer than you were on the mountain." "How much closer must I be?" Jon demanded. "At what point does your fear of what I might become outweigh the risk of keeping me caged?" "When I believe," Arthur said slowly, "that you will walk into that hall and not let their expectations build a crown on your head. When I trust that you will look at the wall and see duty, not destiny. When you can hear your father's name without wanting to prove or disprove you are worthy of it." Jon bristled. "I do not. You do." Arthur said gently. It is not a failing. It is human. But kings have died, and worse, been crowned, for less. Jon looked back at the map. The names there were ink and distance. They felt close enough to touch. How long? He asked. Arthur's hand rested briefly on his shoulder. The world will tell us, he said. It always does. Arthur made good on his promise about the river. You will not make it far in this world if every deep water is your enemy, he said, leading Jon along a narrow goat path that clung to the cliff face. And Starfall will not tolerate a man who fears the Torrentine. It has a cruel sense of humor. I do not fear water, Jon said. I respect not being able to breathe in it. Arthur snorted. You sound like a Lannister maester. He gestured to the ledge ahead. Here. The rock jutted out a little, like a diving board carved by some patient god. Below, the river rolled green and restless, its surface broken by white bursts. The sea's salt crashed in against the cliff further out, but here the water was more river than ocean. Arthur stripped off his shirt and boots with the economy of a man long used to going from armor to bare skin. Scars mapped his chest and arms. Old cuts, a puckered mark along his ribs Jon had never seen before, a faint line at his shoulder that matched the angle of a spear thrust. You have more scars than the tower has cracks, Jon observed. Arthur shrugged. The tower stands, he said. So do I. That is all that matters. He stepped to the edge and dove. For a heartbeat, his body traced a clean arc through air, then knifed into the water with barely a splash. Jon watched the surface, pulse quickening. A moment later, Arthur's head broke through, hair slicked flat, face turned up. Come, he called, before your courage drowns without you. Jon looked down. The ledge seemed much higher from here than it had from the path. The river's churning masked its depth. Rationally, he knew Arthur would not have brought him to a place where rocks lurked just beneath the surface. Emotion did not care. He remembered the mountain, the way stepping to a narrow spur had made his heart race. He remembered the feel of snow he had never touched. He remembered Arthur's fevered murmur, "Ice and fire. Jump!" Arthur called again. Jon jumped. The air rushed past him, a brief, wild howl in his ears. Then the river hit. It was not the hard slap he'd half feared. The water swallowed him, cool and shocking, pressing against his skin. For a disorienting instant, he didn't know which way was up. The current tugged, twisting him. Kick, he thought, dimly recalling Arthur's advice. Up. His legs obeyed, churning. His arms swept, his chest tightened, lungs burning. Then his head broke the surface. He sucked in a breath that tasted of river and salt and something green. Arthur's hand was there, steady on his shoulder. Not quite a stone, Arthur said. More like a stubborn log. Jon spat out water, pushing wet hair from his face. You could have just thrown me, he spluttered. Where would be the lesson in that? Arthur said. Again, they did. Again and again, until Jon's limbs trembled and his skin prickled from the cold. He learned how to angle his body, how to let the current carry him when fighting it would only exhaust him, how to dive and surface with less panic in the moment between. By the time they hauled themselves back onto the ledge, the sun had shifted and his teeth chattered despite the heat. Why this? Jon asked, wrapping his arms around himself as he sat, water dripping from his hair. You've made me a better swordsman than many knights. You've taught me maps and histories. Why must I also be tossed in rivers like a sack of rotten olives? Arthur stretched out beside him, not yet reaching for his shirt. The scars on his chest gleamed pale against the tan. Because, he said, the world will throw you into deep places you did not choose. Water, war, politics. If you panic every time your feet leave the ground, you will drown long before any blade touches you. Jon stared at the churning water below. You speak as if you expect me to be thrown, he said, as if it is inevitable. Arthur's eyes drifted to the horizon, where the line between sea and sky blurred. Look at you, he said quietly, a boy with the blood of dragon and wolf. trained with a fallen star's sword, dreaming of walls and thrones. Did you truly think you would live and die on a mountain, unknown and unremarkable? I could, Jon insisted. I could stay, hunt, train boys, patch roofs. You could, Arthur agreed, for a time. But the world has a way of tugging at such men. And you are already listening to its pull. Naming yourself Snow did not change that. It simply gave you a little more room to breathe before the plunge. Jon watched the current swirl, carrying leaves and bits of debris toward the sea. Some spun in eddies caught in slower circles. Others shot straight through. Do you regret not drowning me when I was small? He asked, half bitter, half jest. Arthur's jaw clenched. There are things I regret, he said. Keeping you alive is not among them. How I have done it, perhaps, but not that you breathe. Jon exhaled. The wind off the water cooled the droplets on his skin. The sun dried them. Then teach me, he said, to swim in rivers and in halls, to fall from cliffs and not break, so that when the world throws me, I do not drown. Arthur nodded once. I have been doing little else since the day your mother died, he said. We will simply widen the lessons. When? Jon asked. Arthur looked back toward the castle, where pale stone rose bright against the sky. Soon, he said. Your presence here will not go unnoticed forever. The Martells are not blind, nor are the Starks. Sooner or later, someone will hear of a boy at Starfall who spars like a Northman and dreams like a dragon. When that happens, we must be ready to decide who you are to them. Starfall, like the tower, changed at night. The sea's roar deepened, a constant hush howl under everything. The wind grew cooler, slipping through arrow slits and under doorways. The hall emptied of noise, leaving only the crackle of banked fires and the occasional laugh from the guards on the walls. Jon could not sleep. He walked instead, softly, bare feet silent on the stone. The castle's passages had begun to map themselves in his mind. This stair curved up to the library. That corridor opened onto the small sept. This heavy oak door led to the balcony that overlooked both courtyard and sea. He slipped through it now, drawn by the murmur of voices. Madness, Illyria was saying, to keep him hidden forever. You are not the only one who has eyes, Arthur. I see how he walks, how he looks north when the wind shifts. He is not a boy who will be content with goats and gulls. He is not ready, Arthur said. His voice carried that roughness it took on when he was tired or troubled. You saw him with the Martell men. One question and his hackles rose like a pup's. He cannot yet hide what he is. If he goes out into the world like that, it will smell his blood and tear at him. Illyria's silhouette moved, pale in the starlight. You mean it will smell your failures and his father's, she said. Do not put all this on a boy who did not choose his birth. Jon froze just inside the door, instinct warring with curiosity. He knew he should leave, that this was not for his ears. He stayed. I am not blind, Illyria went on. I know who he must be, or at least whose he is. The way he looks at dawn, the way he dreams, the way your mouth tightens when anyone mentions the trident in front of him. Arthur was silent. Lyanna, Illyria said softly. That was her name, wasn't it? The northern girl. Ashera spoke of her. Before. The word hung there, heavy. Jon knew of Ashera Dayne only in fragments. Arthur's sister, Lady of the Court, gone too soon. Rumors clung to her in the valley, whispered gossip of heartbreak and cliffs. He had never pried. She was kind, Arthur said, and sharp. She did not want crowns or songs. She wanted to ride, to live. I helped put her in a tower instead. He laughed once, short and bitter. I have a talent for that, it seems. And now her son sleeps under our roof, Illyria said. Does that not demand more than half-truths and hiding? It demands care, Arthur said. More care than I have already shown, perhaps. But not haste. I will not throw him into Doran's hands just because my conscience pricks me. You do not trust our prince? Illyria asked. I trust him, Arthur said. To move slow, to play at spears and sons and vengeance, to see in Jon a piece on his board, perhaps a useful one, perhaps one that must be removed lest he unsettle the pattern. Illyria sighed. You have been too long in that tower. You see plots in every shadow. I have seen enough plots to know they exist, Arthur replied. And I have seen boys killed for less than the blood in Jon's veins. Doran lost a sister to a Targaryen match. He might not be eager to shelter a Targaryen son under his roof. Then send a raven north, Illyria said, to Winterfell, to this Eddard Stark. Let the man who made the first promise have a chance to keep the rest of it. Silence. The wind tugged at the edge of Jon's tunic, flapping the fabric lightly. Perhaps, Arthur said at last, or perhaps I saddle a horse and ride with Jon at my side, and we take the road to the neck ourselves. Slip between watchful eyes and present ourselves at Winterfell's gate like two beggars seeking bread. You would leave Dorne, Illyria said quietly. I left Dorne the day I took the white cloak, Arthur replied. This has been penance, rest. I do not know. But it was never meant to be permanent. The mountain was a pause between storms, not their end. And what of Starfall? Illyria asked. Of your house? You cannot keep running forever, Arthur. Sooner or later you must stand somewhere. Another pause. Then softer, Arthur said. Perhaps I will stand in the snow, for once. Jon's breath caught. Illyria moved closer to him. Their silhouettes seemed to join for a heartbeat, brother and sister side by side. He will not be a child forever, she said. You cannot keep him between worlds and expect him not to tear himself apart trying to bridge them. I know, Arthur said. He is a child of two songs. I am simply trying to ensure he does not end up crushed between them. And what does he want? Illyria asked. Has anyone thought to ask what the boy himself chooses? Arthur's sigh was almost a laugh. Oh, he has told me, he said, in words and in every look he throws north. He wants to see the wall, to stand beneath a weirwood, to look Eddard Stark in the eye. He wants to choose something that is his. And you? She asked. I want, Arthur said slowly, to keep him alive long enough to do so. Jon slipped back from the doorway, heart hammering. He felt suddenly too large for his own skin. They were speaking of him as if he were a sword to be drawn or sheathed, as if his desires were a factor but not the deciding one. Yet he was grateful, too, in some twisted way, that they weighed his wishes at all. Many princes, he suspected, had been moved across maps without their voices ever heard. Child of two songs, he thought, tasting the phrase. Ice and fire, wolf and dragon, Dorne and the north. The decision came with a raven, not from Winterfell nor from Sunspear, from neither of the great poles tugging at Jon's life. It arrived instead from a small, inland holdfast near the Boneway, a lord of little note, whose name Jon had not bothered to fix in his mind. The bird flapped into Starfall's rookery one pale morning, feathers ruffled from a long flight, eyes bright. The maester clucked over it, untied the scrap of parchment on its leg, smoothed it. Arthur and Jon had been on their way to the yard when the maester's sharp Ser Arthur stopped them. Arthur altered course without comment. Jon followed him up the narrow stair to the rookery, where the smell of guano and grain sat thick in the air. The maester held out the letter. From Lord Vaith, he said. He writes of bandits in the passes, of men in boiled leather who strike caravans and vanish into the rocks. He asks if Starfall might send a knight to help hunt them. He names you. Me, Arthur said. He writes Ser Arthur Dayne, if he indeed lives as rumor claims, the maester elaborated. It seems your ghost has been sighted on more roads than ours. Arthur took the parchment, lips thinning as he read. Jon watched his eyes move, flicking from line to line. Bandits, Arthur said at last. Bad ones, organized, bold enough to strike near patrol roads, clever enough to vanish afterward. He fears it is more than hungry men, perhaps ex-soldiers, perhaps worse. He folded the letter. The maester's gaze slid to Jon. The realm might be comforted to know the sword of the morning rides once more, he said. If you take this up, Arthur smiled without humor. The realm will feel nothing at all if I vanish into a canyon chasing ghosts, he said. But Lord Vaith is not wrong to ask. These passes feed half of Dorne. If caravans fear them, bellies empty. He turned to Jon. If you have maps, or men who know these hills better than I would speak with them, he said. I did not come merely to win one skirmish and ride away. I intend to find their nest and break it. You speak like a man who once commanded more than a caravan escort, Vaith observed. Arthur smiled faintly. Once, he said. Those days are gone. I am merely a hedge knight now, looking to repay an old kindness to your house. That last was half truth, half bait. Vaith's eyes narrowed. My father owed House Dayne, Arthur continued smoothly. Starfall's men saved his trade caravans when I was a boy. I grew up hearing tales of their pale sword knight. When I heard your roads were troubled, I thought it fitting to ride here. Jon could see Vaith weighing this, turning it over, searching for hidden edges. Any mention of Starfall to a Dornish lord carried weight. Starfall owes me nothing, Vaith said at last. We have had our quarrels in the marches, but our blood has not mixed since Elia. His lips pressed together. And that was the Targaryen's doing. Jon felt the room tighten around that name. Oberyn Martell, the princess whose children Rhaegar had left in King's Landing. The woman whose brother ruled Sunspear. The reason Dorne's ire toward dragons remained a live coal under every conversation. Then say, Arthur replied, that this is not Starfall's payment but mine. Names aside, I know how to hunt such men.
Let me do so.
Vaith studied him for a moment, then nodded. You shall have my maps, he said. And my son. A generous offer, Arthur said dryly. Is he so troublesome you wish him shot at in the hills? A ripple of subdued laughter ran around the table. Vaith's mouth twitched despite himself. Oberyn chafes, he said. He is of an age with your boy. The two of them may knock some of the foolishness out of each other. Jon glanced at the far end of the high table, where a young man sat, shoulders rigid. Oberyn Vaith's skin was darker than Jon's, his features finer, his hair clipped close. His eyes, when they met Jon's, were bright with impatience and something like challenge. Then perhaps, Arthur said, you will allow us to begin our knocking in the morning. Later, when the hall had emptied and the last of the servants had banked the fires, Jon found himself outside under a sky poured full of stars. The desert wind tugged at his sleeves. The night felt both too open and too small. He heard footsteps behind him. Snow, Oberyn Vaith said, coming to lean against the low parapet. They call you that as if it explains anything. Jon's mouth smoothed into a wry line. And Oberyn tells me you are your father's son? He countered. Oberyn snorted. At least I know whose bastard I'm supposed to be, he said, only half in jest. You fight well, for a mountain goat. You climb well, Jon said. For a river bird. Silence stretched between them for a moment. Below, the dark ribbon of an irrigation canal gleamed faintly, fed by some unseen spring. My father thinks something stirs, Oberyn said, eyes on the distant hills. Beyond bandits, beyond hungry men, he hears rumors from Sunspear, whispers of ravens from King's Landing, of men in Lannister Red asking questions about old names. Jon's jaw tightened. What names? Oberyn glanced at him sidelong. Targaryen, he said. Dayne. Stark. Names that burned and bled for a chair of swords once, and might again. Princes who never learned when to leave ghosts buried. Jon looked out at the dark horizon. Perhaps, he said, some ghosts never lie still. Perhaps, Oberyn agreed. Either way, we will see soon enough. He pushed away from the parapet. Sleep, Snow, he said. Tomorrow we hunt men who prefer shadows. It is best not to stumble after them half-dreaming. Jon did not argue. But when he lay down on the thin pallet in the chamber Vaith had given him, sleep did not come easily. When it did, it brought wolves and dragons again. And this time, somewhere in the distance, a sun with a spear through it watched. They rode out from Vaith with the sun at their backs and the wind in their faces. The company was small by design. Arthur had insisted. Too many men made for a lumbering beast, easily seen and easily fed false trails. Better a handful of sharp eyes and quieter boots. So it was Arthur, Jon, Oberyn, the broken-nosed guard, Tomas Jon had learned, and 4 of Vaith's best scouts. Lean men with sunburnt faces and the unhurried movements of those who spent more of their lives on foot than in saddle. By dawn of the second day, they had made camp in a shallow hollow between hills. The scouts had gone up in pairs, returning with scraps of information. An old fire pit here, fresh hoofprints there, the glint of metal on a distant ridge. Now they gathered around the maps, the fabric walls of the tent snapping softly in the morning breeze. "Their pattern is too neat," Arthur said, tracing a line with the tip of his dagger. "This caravan here, that one there, this patrol. All struck within a few miles of this stretch." He tapped a small, crooked gorge branching off the main pass like a claw. "Men who live on theft cannot afford to range too far from their den," he continued. "Else they waste more time riding than robbing. If I were them, I would make my nest somewhere in this bend." Oberyn frowned. "We sent riders through there," he said. "Twice. They found nothing but rocks and scrub." "Riders," Arthur said. "On the main path. Loud, visible, easy to track and avoid. If I were them, I'd have lookouts on the high ridge. The moment they saw dust from hooves, they would vanish into the deeper cut." He pointed to a barely marked line on the map. "Here, too narrow for a full patrol. Perfect for men who know every stone." One of the scouts, a wiry man named Salar with crow-black hair and a scar across his nose, nodded slowly. "There is a goat track there," he said. "We do not use it. Too easy to break a leg." "Then it will suit us," Arthur said. "Bandits will think the same. They'll feel safe, believing no one will come that way." "And if we break our necks instead of our legs?" Tomas asked dryly. "Then the realm will have fewer fools," Arthur replied. "Are you withdrawing your earlier gratitude?" Tomas grinned. "Not yet, Ser." Oberyn studied the map, then lifted his gaze to Arthur. "You speak like a man who has hunted armies, not bandits," he said. "Armies are only large packs of bandits with banners," Arthur said. "The logic is the same. They must eat, they must sleep, they must hide. Find those places, and you can cut them apart more easily than meeting them head-on." Jon watched the interplay with a growing sense of dislocation. Once, the idea of hunting men in hills would have felt like a distant story. Now he was part of the hand that moved along the map. "We go on foot from here," Arthur decided. "Leave the horses tethered in the hollow. Salar, you and Rafi lead. Jon, Oberyn, you are our second eyes. Tomas, rear guard." "And if we find them?" Oberyn asked. His hand rested lightly on the hilt of his spear. "Do we creep away and come back with a small army? Or do we cut?" Arthur considered. "We are not here to take prisoners," he said. "We are here to break their teeth. If there are many, we withdraw and bring heavier boots. If there are few enough, we cut." "Few enough is a vague count," Tomas said. "You will know it when they are fewer than us after the first volley," Arthur replied. "Until then, we trust the gods or we trust our feet. I prefer my feet." The scouts nodded, accepting this. Oren's jaw set in a way Jon recognized. The mix of fear and excitement he himself had felt on the ridge above the Boneway. Jon's own heart beat faster. The map's lines seemed to shift, the small gorge filling with shadows in his mind. "Remember," Arthur said as they filed out of the tent, "these men will have escape routes planned. We need not kill them all. We need only make this stretch of road more costly for them than for those they prey upon. Fear is a weapon too." Jon thought of the bandit he had watched fall, of the look in his eyes before rock broke bone. "Fear cuts both ways," he said quietly. Arthur glanced at him, and something like approval flickered there. "That is why you will not wield it blindly," he said. The air in the pass felt tighter, as if it too feared ambush. Jon could hear the Torrentine no longer. The sea's roar had been replaced by the dry whisper of wind scraping along rock. The Boneway had earned its name honestly. Bones of old wars lay under its stones, and the hills on either side rose jagged and cruel, perfect places for men with bows to crouch unseen. The caravan ahead of them moved in fits and starts. Oxen leaned into their yokes, hooves slipping on scree. Mules brayed, ears twitching at every clatter of falling pebble. The drivers half shouted, half prayed in the sing-song cadences of southern Dorne, urging the animals on. Arthur rode beside the leading wagon now, his hood down, his face calm. He wore plain leather and mail, no sigils on his chest, no gleam of star-bright steel. Dawn remained wrapped in a length of canvas and strapped to his saddle, looking like nothing more remarkable than a bundled spear. Jon rode further back, near the caravan's rear guard. His eyes roamed the ridgelines, searching for any break in the pattern of rock and scrub. He had learned to read mountains from above. Now he tried to do it from below. "See anything?" called one of the guards riding near him, a stocky man with a broken nose and a surprisingly gentle voice. "Or are you just admiring Dornish stone?" "Stone is the same everywhere," Jon said. "It's the men hiding behind it you must watch." The guard chuckled. "You sound like an old knight, Snow." "I have been cursed with their company," Jon replied mildly. He squinted up at the ridge to their right. For a moment, all he saw was rock. Red, brown, and gray, dotted with stubborn bushes that clung to cracks with thin roots. Then the wind shifted, and a scrap of cloth fluttered where no scrap of cloth should be. His hand dropped to his reins. "Arthur," he called, voice low but firm. Arthur's head turned at once, though Jon sat 3 wagons back. The old knight had always heard more than he should. Jon jerked his chin toward the ridge. Arthur followed his gaze. Jon saw the subtle straightening of his spine, the way his hand went to his hip. "Keep moving," Arthur told the wagon driver beside him. "Slowly. Do not stop unless I say." The driver, a leathery woman with lines at the corners of her eyes, nodded once, jaw tightening. She flicked her reins. The oxen groaned and trudged on. "Bandits?" murmured the broken-nosed guard. "Or archers with very poor sense of dress," Jon said. He loosened his sword in its scabbard. The air seemed to grow thinner. The first arrow answered his suspicions. Came from the left, not the right. A dark blur, whistling down toward the lead wagon. It struck the wooden side with a solid thunk, quivering there like an accusation. "Down!" Arthur barked. The pass exploded into motion. More arrows arced from the ridges now, from both sides. Some thudded into wood and stone. One found a man's shoulder. He screamed and dropped the reins of his mule, which bolted forward, yanking its cart into a wild swerve. "Shields up!" cried one of the caravan guards. "Form on the wagons." Jon was already moving. He slid from his saddle, using the horse's bulk as partial cover, and drew steel. The familiar weight of the short sword steadied him. This was not the yard, not the mountain, but the feel of hilt and leather, of earth underfoot, grounded him. Arthur had taken position near the front, one hand on the wagon, body angled to shield the driver. He had not drawn his wrapped sword, no time for that, but his plain blade was in his hand with the ease of long training. "Arrows first," Arthur called. "Watch the ridges. They'll come down when they think we're pinned." Jon pressed his back to a wagon wheel and peered up. He could see them more clearly now. Shapes slipping between rocks, the glint of metal where sun caught helms. They moved with a coordination that spoke of practice rather than desperation. "Not hungry peasants," Jon muttered. "No," said the broken-nosed guard. "Too neat, too tidy." "Tidy thieves," Jon said. "That seems a contradiction. Only for those who've never seen a sell's word with empty pockets." The man grunted. Another arrow hissed down. Jon heard the wet thunk before he saw it. A sound too familiar from the tower's sparring injuries, magnified now by the sharp inhale and gurgling cough of the man it struck. A guard dropped beside the wagon, clutching at the shaft buried in his throat. Blood pulsed through his fingers. Jon's stomach lurched. He forced himself to look away. He could not help the dead. Not yet. On the ridge to the right, a figure rose higher than the rest, shouting orders. He wore a helmet with a jagged ridge, like teeth, and his movements were crisp, precise. His arm lifted and fell in a clear pattern. Men shifted in response. "They're firing to fix us," Jon called. "They'll rush the front and rear while we huddle in the middle." Arthur's head snapped toward him. "Good eye," he said. "Then we'll disappoint them. Left side, on me. Right side, Snow." The broken-nosed guard swore under his breath. "Right," he said. "We get the boy and the fancy northerner. 7, save us." Jon did not flinch. "Shields," he called. "Up. Use the wagons. On my word, run." "Run?" One of the younger guards squeaked. "Unless you'd prefer to stroll into their blades," Jon snapped. He counted breaths as the next volley fell. 1, 2 metal against wood, stone, flesh 3. Between volleys, the sky cleared for a heartbeat. He took it. "Now," he shouted. He broke from the wagon's cover first, sprinting toward a narrow cut in the right-hand ridge where stones tumbled more loosely. Arrows hissed around him. One grazed his sleeve, tugging at the fabric. Another clattered off the edge of his shield. The guards followed, some more willingly than others. They ran in a crouch, shields raised, boots slipping on loose rock. Above, the archers scrambled to adjust their aim, their neat pattern disrupted. The cut in the ridge was steeper than it had looked from below. Jon scrambled, hands digging into gritty stone, sword clenched between his teeth for a moment as he hauled himself upward. A rock shifted under his foot. He slid back a pace, then surged on. A figure loomed above him, bow discarded, sword half drawn. The man's eyes widened as Jon's head and shoulders appeared over the lip of the path. He had not expected the prey to climb. Jon spat his sword into his hand and thrust. The bandit jerked back, faster than Jon had hoped. The blade grazed his ribs instead of finding his gut. He snarled and slashed downward. Jon twisted. The cut whistled past his ear. He came inside the man's guard, where the longer blade was more cumbersome, and slammed his shoulder into the other's chest. They went down together. Jon's spine hit rock. The breath whooshed out of him. For a heartbeat, all he could see was sky and dust. Then training returned. He rolled, using the slope. The bandit's head struck stone with a dull crack. His sword arm flailed. Jon pinned it with his knee and drove his own blade up, under the man's chin. The resistance was brief, horrible. Warmth spilled over Jon's hand. The bandit's eyes locked on his, shock and something like confusion flickering there. Then they went glassy. His body sagged. Jon stayed there, kneeling over the corpse, breath ragged. The smell came next, the copper of blood, the sour stink of fear. He had killed men before in his imagination, in drills, in the way all boys with wooden swords killed giants and kings in their minds. This was different. This was heavy and small and vividly real. "Up!" Arthur's voice barked, from somewhere further along the ridge. "Snow!" Jon blinked hard and pushed himself to his feet. The world narrowed again to motion and sound. He moved along the ridge, boots crunching on loose stone, following the clash of steel. Arthur was already among them. He fought with the plain blade, yet even stripped of Dawn's myth, there was something unmistakable in the way he moved. Bandits fell back from him as much out of instinct as skill, recognizing a predator when they saw one. Jon joined the melee at Arthur's flank, sword cutting, parrying, thrusting. He did not have time to think about where his blade fell, only that it must. One man swung a club at his head. He ducked and drove his point into the soft flesh just under the arm. Another lunged with a short spear. Jon batted it aside and felt Arthur's blade flash past his shoulder to take the attacker in the throat. Below, chaos reigned. The caravan had seized the moment of confusion to tighten its formation. Wagons drawn closer, oxen urged into a slow, grinding advance. Guards braced shields against sporadic arrows from the other ridge. The jagged-helmed leader on the left shouted, but his commands no longer aligned with a neat plan. His men were glancing right now toward the skirmish on the ridge, toward the unexpected threat. "Push them," Arthur said. "They're not used to prey that bites." Jon bared his teeth and did just that. There was no song in it. Later, Jon suspected some drunk in a tavern might twist the skirmish into something cleaner. A tale of the Sword of the Morning returning from the dead to sweep aside brigands, of his mysterious northern squire cutting a shining path through evil men. The reality was dust in his eyes, grit under his tongue, and the sickening crunch when someone's wrist snapped under a misplaced step. "Left!" Arthur barked. Jon turned. A man came at him swinging an axe with both hands, teeth bared. Jon dropped low, feeling the wind of the blade as it passed over his head. He drove his shoulder into the man's gut and shoved. The bandit staggered back, foot finding empty air at the edge of the ridge. For an instant he pinwheeled, arms flailing. His eyes met Jon's, wide with animal panic. Jon could have grabbed him, could have reached out, caught his arm. Instead he watched as the man fell. A shriek cut off abruptly as body met rock below. Jon heard something more than bone break. Something inside him cracked too. "Do not count them," Arthur said sharply, as if he could feel Jon's thoughts over the clash. "You will lose yourself in the ledger. Stay in the sword. Strike. Move. Breathe." "Easy to say," Jon panted. "Harder to do," Arthur said. "That is why you are here." The jagged-helmed leader on the left ridge had seen enough. He shouted a harsh command. Those bandits still upright began to fall back, moving with the same unsettling discipline they had shown in attack. They were not broken. They were withdrawing. "Do we chase?" Jon asked, chest heaving. "No," Arthur said. "Bandits who know the land better than we do? They'll lead us into a slot and roll rocks down on our heads. We hold here. Make sure they do not regroup close." He raised his voice. "Down there. Keep moving. Do not stop in the kill zone." The caravan driver ahead of him nodded, face pale but determined. "You heard him," she shouted. "We move. If your legs still work, you walk." Slowly, painfully, the column lurched forward. Jon and Arthur remained on the ridge, swords in hand, watching the bandits fade into the higher rocks, shadows melting into stone. Jon wiped his blade on a bandit's cloak, then regretted the choice of fabric as the smell hit him. He sheathed it anyway. "Your first dead men?" Arthur asked quietly, eyes still on the ridgeline. Jon thought of the man under his blade, the one over the cliff, the one whose wrist he'd felt give under a parry. "Not the first I've imagined," he said. "But yes, the first whose faces I'll remember." Arthur nodded once. "Good," he said. Jon bristled. "Good. If you remembered only the lesson and not their faces, I would worry," Arthur replied. "You do not need to pity them. They chose this work. They have taken lives in the past before today. But do not forget that they screamed when they fell, same as any lord would. Keeps a sword honest." Jon looked down into the pass. The dead from the caravan had been moved to the side now, covered with tarps. The wounded sat against wagon wheels, bandages already stained. Men still bled in the dust while others walked on, driven by fear and necessity. "Is this what you did for Rhaegar?" Jon asked softly. "Fought men like this on roads for princes who barely knew their names?" Arthur's jaw clenched. "Sometimes," he said. "Sometimes I fought lords who deserved worse than any bandit. Sometimes I guarded children who had no idea their father's crowns were paid for with blood on stones like these." He glanced at Jon. "You see why I am not eager to throw you into their company." Jon watched a young guard carefully pick his way through the dead, face set in a tight, pale line. "I am in their company," he said. "Bandits or lords, it is all the same when the blades come out." Arthur did not argue. He only said, "Come. We must speak to those who lived through this. They may know more than they think." They descended the ridge. Up close, the caravan's wounds looked uglier. A man sat with his arm in a bloody sling, staring blankly at the rocks as if waiting for them to move again. The driver who had spoken with Arthur earlier stood over one of the tarp-covered shapes, lips moving soundlessly. "Lady," Arthur said gently. She straightened, swiping a hand across her eyes. "We owe you our lives," she said. "Both of you." "You owe us nothing," Arthur said. "Save answers. Have these men struck you before?" "Not me," she said. "But there are stories on the road. Caravans lost. Men missing. They come and go. Take what they want, kill those who argue, vanish into the hills. Lord Vaith sent riders twice. They found nothing. Those that came back, anyway." "Did they speak?" Jon asked. "Say anything? Names? Demands?" She frowned. "They said we should be grateful," she said slowly. "Grateful they took only some, that other men would take all. I told them I'd rather keep my grain than their gratitude." "Other men," Arthur repeated. "Clever, clever. They sow fear in two directions," Arthur said. "Downward into you, upward into lords. We are bad, they imply. But there are worse coming. Pay us or they will come. It smells like more than simple theft." Jon glanced toward the rocks where they had vanished. "Then who sends them?" he asked. Arthur's mouth thinned. "That is what we must find out," he said. "And quickly, before they grow bolder." The driver's gaze flicked between them. "You speak like a lord," she said to Arthur. "And he like a maester." Her eyes settled on Jon. "What are you, boy?" Jon met her look. "A squire," he said. "For now." Lord Vaith's hall smelled of cumin and smoke and unease. The walls were thick and windowless, built of baked mud brick and faced with pale stone. Tapestries hung where in the north there might have been pelts, their woven patterns depicting stylized rivers and ibis birds. The lord himself sat in a heavy chair at the head of the table, a lean man with sunken cheeks and sharp, clever eyes. "You confirm my worst fears, Ser Armand," he said, giving Arthur the name the knight had offered. "That this is more than hunger and lawlessness. These men move like they have a captain who has seen war." Arthur dipped his head. He ate sparingly, a little spiced lamb, some flatbread, and drank only water. "They do," he said. "The man with the jagged helm." He gave clear commands. He withdrew his men in good order when the plan soured. He did not throw them away chasing pride. "A Sellsword captain, then," Vaith said, "or some discontented nobles cast off. Gods know there are plenty of those, now that Robert sits the Iron Throne and Targaryen gold is dust." Jon stiffened ever so slightly at the name. Vaith did not seem to notice. "They spoke of worse men coming," Arthur said. "Whether that was truth or simply spice for their threat, I cannot yet say." Vaith's mouth twisted. "The Marcher lords," he said. "Perhaps they have grown bold. Or perhaps it is the Iron Throne, turning its eye south at last. Either way, I do not like my roads taken hostage." He leaned forward, fingers steepled. "I am in your debt," he added. "Whoever you truly are, knight. My men who rode out before you came back with fewer each time. You returned with all and fewer of the enemy. That counts for much." Arthur inclined his head. "If you have maps, or men who know these hills better than I would speak with them," he said. "I did not come merely to win one skirmish and ride away. I intend to find their nest and break it." "You speak like a man who once commanded more than a caravan escort," Vaith observed. Arthur smiled faintly. "Once," he said. "Those days are gone. I am merely a hedge knight now, looking to repay an old kindness to your house." That last was half truth, half bait. Vaith's eyes narrowed. "My father owed House Dayne," Arthur continued smoothly. "Starfall's men saved his trade caravans when I was a boy. I grew up hearing tales of their pale sword knight. When I heard your roads were troubled, I thought it fitting to ride here." Jon could see Vaith weighing this, turning it over, searching for hidden edges. Any mention of Starfall to a Dornish lord carried weight. "Starfall owes me nothing," Vaith said at last. "We have had our quarrels in the marches, but our blood has not mixed since Elia. His lips pressed together. And that was the Targaryen's doing. Jon felt the room tighten around that name. Elia Martell, the princess whose children Rhaegar had left in King's Landing. The woman whose brother ruled Sunspear. The reason Dorne's ire toward dragons remained a live coal under every conversation. Then say, Arthur replied, that this is not Starfall's payment but mine. Names aside, I know how to hunt such men. Let me do so. Vaith studied him for a moment, then nodded. You shall have my maps, he said, and my son. A generous offer, Arthur said dryly. Is he so troublesome you wish him shot at in the hills? A ripple of subdued laughter ran around the table. Vaith's mouth twitched despite himself. Oberyn chafes, he said. He is of an age with your boy. The two of them may knock some of the foolishness out of each other. Jon glanced at the far end of the high table, where a young man sat, shoulders rigid. Oberyn Vaith's skin was darker than Jon's, his features finer, his hair clipped close. His eyes, when they met Jon's, were bright with impatience and something like challenge. Then perhaps, Arthur said, you will allow us to begin our knocking in the morning. Later, when the hall had emptied and the last of the servants had banked the fires, Jon found himself outside under a sky poured full of stars. The desert wind tugged at his sleeves. The night felt both too open and too small. He heard footsteps behind him. Snow, Oberyn Vaith said, coming to lean against the low parapet. They call you that as if it explains anything. Jon's mouth smoothed into a wry line. And Oberyn tells me you are your father's son? He countered. Oberyn snorted. At least I know whose bastard I'm supposed to be, he said, only half in jest. You fight well, for a mountain goat. You climb well, Jon said, for a river bird. Silence stretched between them for a moment. Below, the dark ribbon of an irrigation canal gleamed faintly, fed by some unseen spring. My father thinks something stirs, Oberyn said, eyes on the distant hills. Beyond bandits, beyond hungry men, he hears rumors from Sunspear, whispers of ravens from King's Landing, of men in Lannister Red asking questions about old names. Jon's jaw tightened. What names? Oberyn glanced at him sidelong. Targaryen, he said. Dayne, Stark. Names that burned and bled for a chair of swords once, and might again. Princes who never learned when to leave ghosts buried. Jon looked out at the dark horizon. Perhaps, he said, some ghosts never lie still. Perhaps, Oberyn agreed. Either way, we will see soon enough. He pushed away from the parapet. Sleep, Snow, he said. Tomorrow we hunt men who prefer shadows. It is best not to stumble after them half-dreaming. Jon did not argue. But when he lay down on the thin pallet in the chamber Vaith had given him, sleep did not come easily. When it did, it brought wolves and dragons again. And this time, somewhere in the distance, a sun with a spear through it watched. They rode out from Vaith with the sun at their backs and the wind in their faces. The company was small by design. Arthur had insisted. Too many men made for a lumbering beast, easily seen and easily fed false trails. Better a handful of sharp eyes and quieter boots. So it was Arthur, Jon, Oberyn, the broken-nosed guard, Tomas Jon had learned, and 4 of Vaith's best scouts. Lean men with sunburnt faces and the unhurried movements of those who spent more of their lives on foot than in saddle. By dawn of the second day, they had made camp in a shallow hollow between hills. The scouts had gone up in pairs, returning with scraps of information. An old fire pit here, fresh hoofprints there, the glint of metal on a distant ridge. Now they gathered around the maps, the fabric walls of the tent snapping softly in the morning breeze. Their pattern is too neat, Arthur said, tracing a line with the tip of his dagger. This caravan here, that one there, this patrol. All struck within a few miles of this stretch. He tapped a small, crooked gorge branching off the main pass like a claw. Men who live on theft cannot afford to range too far from their den, he continued. Else they waste more time riding than robbing. If I were them, I would make my nest somewhere in this bend. Oberyn frowned. We sent riders through there, he said. Twice. They found nothing but rocks and scrub. Riders, Arthur said. On the main path. Loud, visible, easy to track and avoid. If I were them, I'd have lookouts on the high ridge. The moment they saw dust from hooves, they would vanish into the deeper cut. He pointed to a barely marked line on the map. Here, too narrow for a full patrol. Perfect for men who know every stone. One of the scouts, a wiry man named Salar with crow-black hair and a scar across his nose, nodded slowly. There is a goat track there, he said. We do not use it. Too easy to break a leg. Then it will suit us, Arthur said. Bandits will think the same. They'll feel safe, believing no one will come that way. And if we break our necks instead of our legs? Tomas asked dryly. Then the realm will have fewer fools, Arthur replied. Are you withdrawing your earlier gratitude? Tomas grinned. Not yet, Ser. Oberyn studied the map, then lifted his gaze to Arthur. You speak like a man who has hunted armies, not bandits, he said. Armies are only large packs of bandits with banners, Arthur said. The logic is the same. They must eat, they must sleep, they must hide. Find those places, and you can cut them apart more easily than meeting them head-on. Jon watched the interplay with a growing sense of dislocation. Once, the idea of hunting men in hills would have felt like a distant story. Now he was part of the hand that moved along the map. We go on foot from here, Arthur decided. Leave the horses tethered in the hollow. Salar, you and Rafi lead. Jon, Oberyn, you are our second eyes. Tomas, rear guard. And if we find them? Oberyn asked. His hand rested lightly on the hilt of his spear. Do we creep away and come back with a small army? Or do we cut? Arthur considered. We are not here to take prisoners, he said. We are here to break their teeth. If there are many, we withdraw and bring heavier boots. If there are few enough, we cut. Few enough is a vague count, Tomas said. You will know it when they are fewer than us after the first volley, Arthur replied. Until then, we trust the gods or we trust our feet. I prefer my feet. The scouts nodded, accepting this. Oberyn's jaw set in a way Jon recognized. The mix of fear and excitement he himself had felt on the ridge above the Boneway. Jon's own heart beat faster. The map's lines seemed to shift, the small gorge filling with shadows in his mind. Remember, Arthur said as they filed out of the tent. These men will have escape routes planned. We need not kill them all. We need only make this stretch of road more costly for them than for those they prey upon. Fear is a weapon too. Jon thought of the bandit he had watched fall, of the look in his eyes before rock broke bone. Fear cuts both ways, he said quietly. Arthur glanced at him, and something like approval flickered there. That is why you will not wield it blindly, he said. The goat track deserved its name. It clung to the side of the hill like an afterthought. A thin ribbon of packed dirt and loose stone with a steep drop on one side and unforgiving rock on the other. Jon's boots slid more than once, sending small showers of pebbles rattling down into the ravine below. Do not look down, Oberyn murmured behind Salar. Look where you want your foot to be, not where it might fall. Wise words from a man whose family lives in a riverbed, Jon muttered back. Oberyn snorted softly. We built the riverbed, he said. We know where it floods. This, he glanced briefly over the edge. This is another matter. The scouts moved with an ease born of long practice. Salar's feet found invisible holds, his weight always centered. The man behind him, Rafi, was almost as sure, though he cursed more as he climbed. Arthur and Tomas brought up the rear, Arthur's movements economical, Tomas's heavier steps sending the occasional rock skittering. The sun beat down, hot enough to make the air shimmer. Sweat trickled down Jon's spine, itching under his shirt. The pack on his back felt heavier with each step. They climbed in silence. Words were wasted breath in this heat and on this path. At last, the track widened slightly, opening onto a narrow shelf of rock. Salar raised a hand. The line froze, He crouched, fingers brushing the ground. Jon edged closer, careful of the edge. First, he saw nothing. Then the pattern resolved. Boot prints in the dust, faint but visible where some heel had pressed a little harder, where a toe had scuffed. Men, Salar murmured. Not goats, passing through often enough to make a path. How recent? Arthur asked, voice low. Salar inhaled, eyes half closing, as if scent might help him where sight did not. 2 days, he said. 3? Hard to tell. The wind here is tricky, but not weeks, not months. He pointed toward a narrow cleft ahead. They go in there, he said. The goat track continues above, but see, this path turns. Jon saw it now, a slightly deeper where on the stones leading to the cleft, where shadows pooled. Perfect place for a den, Tomas muttered. Or a tomb, Oberyn said. Arthur's gaze swept the ridge. We cannot all go in at once, he said. Too easy to trap. Salar, you and Rafi flank above, if there is a way. Tomas, you hold here. If any flee out, you cut them. Jon, Oberyn on me. Jon's stomach tightened. He nodded, fingers loosening and tightening on the hilt of his sword. They slipped into the cleft. The temperature dropped a few degrees in the shade. A small mercy. The passage narrowed, the walls close enough that Jon could have touched both at once. The air smelled faintly of old smoke and something else. Grease, perhaps. Men. They moved slowly, boots placing carefully. A stone dislodged here would ring like a bell. Jon's breath sounded too loud in his own ears. The cleft twisted once, twice. Light filtered in from above in thin fingers, not enough to see clearly but enough to keep them from stumbling blindly. Then it opened. They stepped into a bowl-shaped hollow, a natural amphitheater of stone. The floor was uneven but largely clear. At its center, a half-circle of crude shelters leaned against the rock wall. Lean-tos of hide and canvas, a rough fire pit ringed with stones, a few barrels and crates stacked haphazardly. No men. Jon's pulse hammered. Empty, he whispered. Arthur's eyes flicked over the camp. No, he said. Not for long. He pointed with his chin. Jon saw it then. A rack of bows, strings taut, propped against the rock. A pile of arrows in a barrel. A line of harnesses and saddles hung neatly on pegs. A pot still warm above the fire pit, coals glowing faintly red beneath the ash. They are out, Arthur murmured. Hunting, or striking. Vaith, Oberyn's voice sharpened. Or someone else, Arthur said. In any case, they will return here. We do not want to be standing in the center when they do. He moved quickly now, directing with short gestures. Jon, arrows. Cut the strings. Oberyn, those saddles. Slash the girths. Salar, he called softly upward. Anyone on the ridge? Not yet, came the faint reply. They went to work. Jon moved to the bows first. Up close, he could see the care that had gone into them. These were not makeshift weapons. The wood was seasoned, the strings well-oiled. He felt a brief, unexpected pang at the thought of ruining good craft. Then he pictured the guard with an arrow in his throat and sawed through the first string with his knife. He worked fast, cutting, breaking knocks, stomping lightly on the center of a bough to crack it just enough to weaken. Oberyn did the same with the saddles, his knife flashing. Straps parted under his blade. Buckles loosened so subtly that a man might not notice until his horse lurched under him. Arthur moved through the shelters, overturning crates, checking barrels. He found dried meat, hard bread, a small chest with coins, mostly clipped and stained. He kicked it aside. This is not enough for an army, he said, but it is too much for mere wanderers. Jon found a scrap of parchment pinned to a post. It bore a crude drawing, a crown over a stylized lion, a jagged line of script beneath red. In a hand that never finished its lessons, paid. He handed it to Arthur. The knight's mouth tightened. Lannister gold? He murmured. Or someone who wishes to be seen as such. Why would Lannisters pay bandits in Dorne? Oberyn asked. We are not their concern. Yet. Because chaos travels, Arthur said. If the south is unsettled, The Martells must look to their own roads, not to the Red Keep. It is how a cautious lion tests the strength of spears without drawing blood on its own paws. He folded the parchment and tucked it into his belt. Can we not wait? Jon asked. Ambush them here, as they ambushed the caravans? Arthur considered. Perhaps, he said, but I would rather not test our luck in a bowl where arrows can fall from above. We have already taken their teeth. Let us leave them a surprise and go. What kind of surprise? Oberyn asked. Arthur's eyes went to the barrels of water and the sacks of grain. The kind that swells in the belly, he said, and the kind that catches flame. Jon knew that tone. He had heard it before when Arthur described sieges, the patience, the cruelty of starvation. Poison? He asked, uneasy. Arthur shook his head. We are not so subtle, he said, nor are we assassins. No, we throw their food into the ravine. We tip their barrels. We leave the camp as if we were clumsy raiders. They will blame one another. Their cohesion will crack. Men who steal for coin seldom have deep loyalty. And the fire? Oberyn asked. Arthur's gaze went to the canvas roofs. We light them, he said, at the far end. When they return, hungry and tired, they will see smoke. They will think some rival came while they were away. They will scramble to save what they think remains. In the chaos, they will not be thinking of Vaeth's caravans. Jon swallowed. We leave them alive. For now, Arthur said. We make their work harder and their nights colder. If they persist, we will cut deeper. But I would rather have them running, quarreling, than martyred in their own minds. It was not the clean justice some northern tale would have offered. It was messy, practical, aimed not at vengeance but at disruption. Jon found he preferred it. They worked quickly, hauling sacks to the edge and tipping them over, the grain spilling in dusty streams down the rocks. The water barrels sloshed and glugged as they emptied. Arthur set a small fire at the far shelter, just enough to catch the canvas once they were well away. By the time they slipped back through the cleft, faint smoke already curled from the camp. They had nearly reached the goat track when they heard voices. Jon pressed himself against the rock. Salar gestured sharply, and they froze. The bandits were returning. From their vantage, half hidden above the cleft, Jon could see them file into the hollow. The jagged-helmed leader was at their head, armor dusty, face slick with sweat. His men moved tiredly, bows slung, spears on shoulders. They stopped as one. Even at this distance, Jon could see the moment comprehension hit. Heads snapped toward the empty barrel racks, the spilled grain. Shouts broke out. One man ran for a shelter that already smoldered. The leader whirled, striking a subordinate who came too close. His mouth moved in angry barks, too far away to hear. His men gestured, some pointing toward the south, others toward the north. Blame flew on the wind. See, Arthur murmured. Teeth cracked, tongues sharpened. They will spend more time fighting ghosts now than hunting caravans. Will that be enough? Oberyn asked. No, Arthur said, but it is a start. Sunspear was far from the Boneway in miles, but not in whispers. Jon did not see it, but later Arthur would describe the scene to him in broad strokes, filling in gaps with the imagination of a man who knew court halls better than he wished. In Sunspear's cool, shaded audience chamber, where orange and red hangings softened the harsh Dornish light, Prince Oberyn Martell listened to Lord Vaeth's careful words. Vaeth stood with his shoulders tight, sweat beading at his temple despite the shade. He spoke of bandits in the pass, of caravans bled, of a knight who had appeared like a ghost and moved like a seasoned commander. He spoke of a camp found and ruined, of grain scattered and water spilled, of men set at one another's throats without a single throat being cut in that place. And this night, Oberyn said, fingers steepled under his chin. He gives you no name you trust. He calls himself Armin Sand, Vaeth said, but he moves like no bastard I know. And his boy, there is something of the north in him, and something else. Something else, repeated the man lounging near one of the carved pillars, his voice amused. You grow poetic, Vaeth. Have the bandits stolen all the wine from your cellars as well? Oberyn Martell looked as if the sun had decided to take human form and walk the halls. His dark hair fell loose around his shoulders. His lean face held a perpetual ghost of a smile, and his eyes were sharp, restless things, always moving, always measuring. Vaith stiffened slightly. I speak only what I saw, Prince Oberyn, he said. And you saw a man who fights like a legend you were told had died, Oberyn said. And a boy who stands beside him like a shadow that has not yet decided which way it wants to fall. He took the parchment Vaith offered, the crude lion and crown drawing. He studied it, lips twisting. Subtle, he said. If a lion wished to tangle us in tails, he might do worse. Or better, Doran murmured. My brother sees plots where sometimes there are only opportunists, scrambling for the gold that falls from tables in King's Landing. Men do not draw lions by chance, Oberyn said. Not in our hills. He flicked the parchment back onto the low table beside Doran's chair. And if this knight is not who he claims, then I would know who he is, Doran said. The sword of the morning died at the Tower of Joy, unless every raven we received lied. Yet Vaith describes a man who fights very much like him. And House Dayne's pale blade does not hang over their hearth now, if my last raven from Illyria speaks true. Illyria always was too honest for her own peace, Oberyn said fondly. If Arthur lives and she knew, she would be angry with him, Doran said, and glad, and her letters would be late, and full of things she did not quite say. He sighed, leaning back. The cushions softened the lines of pain carved into his face. Bandits in the Boneway, Lannister gold in our hills, or men who wish us to think so. Rumors of a ghost with a star in his hand. His gaze slid to Oberyn. I cannot ride out. You can. Oberyn's smile sharpened. You wish me to hunt ghosts, brother? I wish you to hunt truth, Doran said. Find this knight. See with your own eyes whether the man Vaith describes is the one we once knew. And see what boy he has at his side. And if he is Arthur? Oberyn asked, head tilting. Does Dorne forgive him for standing with Rhaegar while Elia died? Doran's fingers tightened. Dorne, he said, remembers everything. Forgiveness is more complicated. But I am less interested in old debts than in new balances. If Arthur Dayne walks our hills with a half-grown blade at his shoulder, I would know how that steel might cut. Oberyn's eyes gleamed. You speak like a man arranging pieces on a board, he said. I begin to think you enjoy this game more than you claim. I enjoy knowing where the knives are, Doran replied, so that when they fall, they do not fall into the backs of my children. Oberyn laughed, low and delighted. Very well, he said. I will ride. I have been growing restless in the water gardens. Sand and laughter only soothe so long. Let me stretch my legs. Let me see if the sword of the morning still remembers how to draw first blood. He rose in one fluid motion. And the boy? He asked. If I find him to be what Vaith hints he might be? Doran's gaze drifted briefly toward the north, where the maps on his wall marked a long line of ice. Then be gentle, he said. We have broken enough children's lives trying to avenge the ones already lost. They met Oberyn Martell 3 days later, though Jon did not know at once who he was. The camp lay in a shallow basin just off the main track, its bright tents stark against the kiln-baked earth. Horses stood picketed in a neat line, their tack finer than any Jon had seen outside Starfall. The leather tooled with suns and spears, the bits polished, the saddle blankets dyed in rich oranges and reds. Arthur reined in at the sight, his shoulders tensing. Princes do not travel lightly, he murmured. Is that? Orin's voice trailed off, a ward with dread on his face. Prince Oberyn, Tomas supplied. The Viper. My mother says if you see his camp, you should either run toward it very fast or away from it faster. Which are we doing? Jon asked. Arthur's mouth twisted. We ride in, he said, slowly, hands visible. If this camp wanted us dead, we would not have seen it before the arrows found us. Jon's nerves prickled. He nudged his horse forward, letting Arthur take the lead. The sun was sinking, turning the hills to molten gold. The air held that brief, deceptive softness it sometimes found at dusk, as if the day wished to apologize for its heat. A man practiced with a spear near the largest tent, his movements fluid, almost lazy. He spun the weapon between his hands, letting the long haft roll over palms and fingers, then snapped it into a series of sharp thrusts that cut the air with a low whistle. He was not armored, only in light leathers and a loose shirt unlaced at the throat. A gold chain glinted against his chest. His dark hair fell around his shoulders. He turned as they approached, and Jon saw that his eyes were laughing even when his mouth was not. "Visitors," he said, as if commenting on the weather, "and not the sort who usually stumble into my camp by accident. Ser Armand y presume." Arthur's jaw tightened at the name, but he inclined his head. "Prince Oberyn," he said. He did not dismount. "I did not expect to find royalty in the Bandit Hills." "Bandit Hills," Oberyn repeated, as if they owned them. He planted the butt of his spear in the dirt, leaning against it. "My brother tells me men bleed here while kings argue about whether it is their concern. I find that offensive." His gaze slid to Jon. "And this must be the snow Vathas Raven mentioned," he said. "You look like you've never seen the stuff." Jon forced himself not to straighten or fidget. "Jon Snow," he said, "Ser Arthur's squire." "Squire," Oberyn said, as if tasting the word. "Is that what they call it now?" A shout rose from one of the tents. A girl with sun-browned skin and loose curls pushed aside the canvas flap and stepped out, wiping a knife on her sleeve. She wore breeches and a sleeveless leather jerkin, arms bare and scarred. "Father, the rabbit is gutted," she said. "If you keep playing with your spear, it will burn." "It has survived worse heat than this," Oberyn replied. "Obara, meet Ser Armand and his snow." Obara's eyes flicked over Jon the way a man might size up a horse. Critical, unsentimental. "Too pretty to be useless," she judged. "He can help with the fire." Jon blinked. "Aye, we'll do as she says," Arthur murmured. "We are guests of a sort." They dismounted. As Jon took his horse's reins toward the picket line, another girl emerged from a different tent, this one slender, with dark hair in a long braid and a sly, measuring gaze. A third, younger, followed, eyes bright and curious. Oberyn's daughters, Jon realized, the sand snakes he had heard mentioned in hushed, half-fascinated tones at Starfall. "Do not stare," Oberyn hissed under his breath. "I am not," Jon lied. He helped Obara with the fire, more to have something to do with his hands than from necessity. Her knife work was fast and efficient. She tossed rabbit pieces into a pot with onions and dried herbs, the scent rising as it began to simmer. "You fight?" she asked, without looking up. "A little," Jon said. "That is what men say who want you to underestimate them," she said. "Or overestimate them." "You?" Jon asked. She grinned, showing a chipped tooth. "Enough," she said. "We can show each other later." Around the fire, Oberyn and Arthur spoke in low tones. Jon could not catch every word, but fragments reached him on the changing wind. Vathas letter, lion and crown. Old ghosts. Elia. Boy has dreams wall north. He felt exposed, like a knife laid bare on a table. After the meal, rabbit stew, surprisingly good for something cooked in the open, they gathered around the central fire. Oberyn poured wine from a narrow-necked flask, offering it first to Arthur. Arthur shook his head. "I prefer to keep my wits," he said. "And you, Snow?" Oberyn asked. Jon hesitated. In Starfall's hall, he had drunk watered wine, more out of politeness than desire. Here, under the stars with a prince who looked at him as if he were a puzzle, he was less sure. "I will drink if you do," he said carefully. Oberyn's smile deepened. "You have some sense, at least," he said. He poured a small cup and handed it over. The wine was strong and spiced, burning slightly as it went down. "So," Oberyn said, settling back with his own cup, Tell me, Ser Armand, how does a hedge knight who claims no sigil come to ride with the instincts of a commander and the courtesy of a man who has stood before kings? I have stood before men who thought themselves kings, Arthur said. It is a habit I am trying to break. Oberyn snorted. Oberyn's eyes gleamed. And how does a boy named Snow, he went on, come to sit beside him with the stance of a northern warrior and the eyes of a man who has seen too much for his years? Jon held his gaze. We could ask you, he said, how a prince comes to sit in the dirt with bandit dust on his boots. The sand snakes chuckled. Tomas made a strangled sound that might have been laughter or fear. Oberyn tilted his head. He bites, he said to Arthur. You did not lie about that. I rarely do, Arthur replied. I simply omit. An art in itself, Oberyn said. Doran tells me you might be a ghost. A very specific ghost. One with a sword that belongs in Starfall's hall. Arthur's jaw tightened. Doran thinks many things, he said. Most of them at least half true. Oberyn's gaze dropped briefly to the wrapped bundle at Arthur's side. I could ask you to unwrap it, he said lightly. We could settle the question with a single gleam. You could, Arthur said. And I could refuse, and then we would both know who the other is, and the night would grow much less pleasant. Silence stretched. The fire popped, throwing sparks into the dark. Then Oberyn laughed, delighted. 7. I have missed this, he said. Men who do not tremble every time I mention a spear. Very well. Keep your bundle wrapped. Let us pretend, for the length of this fire, that you are who you claim. A simple knight. A boy with simple dreams. His eyes flicked to Jon again. Tell me, Snow, he said. What are those dreams? When you close your eyes in whatever tower this man has kept you in, where does your mind go? Jon felt Arthur's warning like a hand on his shoulder, though the knight did not touch him. North, Jon said. The word rose before he could craft something safer. To ice, to a wall I have never seen, to trees with faces, to wolves. Oberyn's expression did not change much, but something behind his eyes sharpened. Not to thrones, he said. I have never sat in one, Jon replied. Neither have I, Oberyn said. Yet I find people speak of them around me with an annoying frequency. He drained his cup and tossed the last drops into the fire. Flames hissed. Very well, he said. Ghost or no, you hunt bandits with care, not cruelty. You keep Vaetha's roads a little safer. You do not speak like a boy who wants to set the world on fire just to see if it burns. That is enough for me tonight. He rose. Tomorrow, he said, we will see if your little fighting lives up to your modesty. My daughters grow bored. They could use new targets. Oberyn grinned, hefting her spear. I like him, she said. If he bleeds well enough, we should keep him. The spear felt wrong in Jon's hands. Not heavy exactly. The haft was ash, well balanced, the wood smooth from use. Its length, though, changed everything. His instincts, honed on swords, wanted him closer, inside a man's arm's reach. The spear demanded patience, distance. Oberyn spun hers with a familiarity that made the motion look casual. She rapped the butt against the packed earth once, twice, a small, eager tattoo. Ready, Snow? She asked. Or do you still prefer hitting rocks with swords? Jon rolled his shoulders, trying to find the right grip. I thought we were to be friendly, he said. This is friendly? Oberyn called from the side, amusement coloring his voice. If she wished to be unfriendly, she would use the steel one. Arthur's arms were folded, expression unreadable. Remember your feet, he said. The spear is only as good as the ground you stand on. Jon adjusted his stance, one foot slightly forward, knees loose. He held the spear in both hands, low, the point angled toward Oberyn's chest. Begin, Oberyn said. Oberyn moved first. She did not rush. She stepped in with a series of testing jabs, the spear point flicking toward Jon's shoulder, his knee, his ribs. He parried with the haft, wood knocking against wood, the vibrations running up his arms. Her reach advantage was obvious. Each time he tried to step in, she slid back, the spear point snapping out to remind him how far he still had to go. "Do not chase her," Arthur called. "Make her come to you." Easy to say, Jon thought, teeth gritted. Obara's grin flashed as she spun, sweeping the butt of the spear low toward his ankles. He jumped, barely clearing it. His landing was less neat. He stumbled, recovered, and thrust clumsily toward her midsection. She knocked the spear aside with infuriating ease and rapped him smartly on the shoulder. The blow stung. "Again," she said. They went on. Slowly, Jon began to read her rhythm. Obara favored her right side, he noticed, leaning into thrusts from that direction. Her footwork was quick, but sometimes left her weight a shade too far forward when she got excited. He let her push him for a while, absorbing, watching. Then, when she came in with a familiar combination, he stepped sideways instead of back. Her spear point whistled past his ribs. He brought his own half down sharply on the wood near her hands. Her grip broke. The spear slid. She swore and grabbed again, but he had already stepped in, bringing the butt of his weapon up to tap her firmly under the chin. She froze. A beat of silence hung in the air. Then Oberyn clapped, slow and delighted. "Better than rocks," he said. "You may keep him, Obara. For a while." Obara's eyes had narrowed, but not in anger. She stepped back, rubbing her chin. "You learn fast," she said. "For a northerner." "I have not been north," Jon said. "You carry it in your shoulders," she replied. All tight, as if bracing for snow. Nymeria Sand, the second of Oberyn's daughters, lounged against a crate, picking her nails with a small knife. She eyed Jon with open curiosity. "He is not only north," she said. "Look at the way he watches before he moves. That is more dragon." Jon stiffened. "I have never seen one," he said. "Few have," Nymeria replied, "and yet their stories linger, as do their habits." Oberyn's gaze flicked to Arthur. "She means," he said lightly, "that he thinks too much for a simple Sellsword's brat." Arthur did not rise to the bait. "Thinking keeps swords from going where they should not," he said. "Most days." Oberyn's smile sharpened. "And some days it leads them exactly where they are meant to go," he said. "Which brings me to the question I have danced around long enough." He straightened, leaning on his spear. "Ser Armand," he said, "we both know the game we are playing. My brother did not send me into the hills merely to admire your footwork. He wishes to know if the man Vaith describes is one we lost at the end of a war we did not start. And if the boy at his side is something more than a stray." The air in the camp seemed to grow still. Even the horses at the picket line flicked their ears, as if sensing tension. Arthur's jaw clenched. "And what will your brother do with such knowledge?" he asked. "If he believes me to be that man, and this boy to be that boy?" Oberyn shrugged one shoulder. "Doran plays a long game," he said. "Longer, I think, than even he truly grasps. He will consider histories and debts and futures. He will weigh whether you are a blade to be sheathed in Starfall, pointed at King's Landing, or kept wrapped in Dornish sand." "And you?" Jon asked, surprising himself. Oberyn's attention settled on him fully. It felt like standing under a magnifying glass. "I?" Oberyn said. "I lost a sister to dragons. To lions, more precisely, but they wore a dragon's crown at the time. I lost nieces and nephews whose blood was as much Dorne's as yours is, whatever it is. I have no love for old houses that think their sigil gives them the right to set the world ablaze." His gaze softened slightly. "But," he added, "I have a certain fondness for boys who dream of walls instead of thrones, of wolves instead of crowns. Such boys sometimes grow into men who can be pointed in useful directions." "Useful," Jon repeated, tasting the word. "Useful to themselves," Oberyn said, "as well as others. If you think you can live in this world untouched by any cause but your own belly, you are more naive than your eyes suggest." Jon thought of the convoy in the Boneway, of the driver standing over a tarp-covered shape, of Arthur's fevered mutterings, of Lyanna's plea, I do not want a throne, he said quietly. I do not want to be a banner. I want to stand where I am needed and keep the worst things from reaching those who cannot hold swords. Oberyn's smile returned, softer this time. A noble sentiment, he said. Dangerous too. Men will hear those words and think, here is a shield we may raise where we choose. He spun the spear once, then planted it. For what it is worth, he said. I will not send a raven to Doran with your secrets neatly inked. Not yet. I will tell him only that the roads are a shade safer, that a knight who might or might not be a ghost walks them with more care than most lords, and that the boy at his side looks north when the wind blows. Arthur exhaled softly, the tension in his shoulders easing by a fraction. That is more mercy than I expected, he said. Mercy, Oberyn scoffed. No, curiosity and prudence. It would be a waste to throw you both into some game before you have fully grown into your teeth. Let the lions play their little tricks in the hills. Let the Starks brood in their snow. Dorne can wait and watch. He turned away, calling to Nymeria about sharpening blades. Arthur moved to Jon's side. You see, he murmured, two worlds. Dorne with its coiled patience, the North with its cold honor. You stand between them, and men like Oberyn will try to pull you toward one or the other. Jon looked at the spear in his hand, then at the sword sheathed at his hip. I will stand where the shadow falls shortest, he said. Even if that is alone. Arthur's mouth twitched. No one stands alone long, he said. Not in this world, but it is a good place to start your thinking. They stayed in Oberyn's camp one more night. In that span of hours, no grand decisions were made. No oaths sworn. Yet something shifted in the air around the fire, as if threads that had been stretched separately now brushed against each other, considering. Oberyn sat cross-legged, poking the embers with a stick. His earlier awe at the prince had softened into something like grudging camaraderie. Being insulted equally by a royal and by sand snakes had a leveling effect. You will return to Vaith? Arthur asked him. Oberyn nodded. For now, he said, my father will want a full report. He will curse that he allowed me to ride with you and then ask when he may send me again. And you? Oberyn asked Jon. Back to Starfall? Or to your mountain tower? Jon hesitated. The thought of the tower, empty now save for goats and ghosts, tugged at him. Starfall tugged too, with its hall and its pale sword over the hearth. And beyond both, northward, something deeper called. For now, he said, echoing Oberyn. Starfall, there are still drills to run, roofs to patch, goats to scold, Arthur added. Ravens to intercept, Oberyn murmured. Jon met his gaze. You truly will not speak of us to your brother? He asked. Not plainly. Oberyn stretched his legs, crossing them at the ankles. I will not lie, he said. I will tell him what I have seen. That is my habit. Lies are too much effort to maintain, but I can choose which truths to emphasize, which to leave in shadow. He lifted a hand, palm up. On this side, he said, Arthur Dayne, perhaps, or perhaps a man who has simply read too many songs about him. A boy with more questions than answers, who fights bandits more readily than kings. On the other, he flipped the hand. A dragon's son hidden under a bastard snow, a potential banner for those who whisper of changing thrones. Which of these will I hold toward Doran? Which will I let the light fall on? Jon watched the play of fire on his palm. I would prefer the first, he said. Then I will show him mostly that, Oberyn said. For now. But know this, Snow, the world will not allow you to be only one thing forever. Sooner or later, someone will shout your name in a hall and attach a Targaryen or a Stark to it, whether you wish it or not. Then I will be there to answer, Jon said. Not hiding on a mountain. Arthur's expression flickered. Pride and worry, so often at war in him, both showed. And if the North calls? Oberyn asked. If word comes that Eddard Stark rides south or that trouble brews at some wall of ice? Jon did not have to think long. The answer sat in his bones, as plain as his need to draw breath. I will go, he said. Not as a prince, not as a banner, as a man who owes his mother's kin the truth of his existence. And as a sword, if they will have it. Arthur sighed softly. We will, he said. We. Do not think I will let you ride alone into that snow. Oberyn smirked. And Dorne? He asked. If trouble comes here? It already has, Oberyn said. It is simply subtle. For now, we will let it simmer. When it boils, we will see whether the dragon wolf here prefers fire or frost. Jon stared into the fire. The flames licked at the logs, consuming, transforming. He thought of his dreams, of the weirwood and the dragons, of wolves watching from the edges as the snow fell. 2 worlds, 2 songs, 2 pulls. Around the fire, men and women from one of those worlds laughed, traded jibes, sharpened steel. Arthur sat at his side, a link between the old tales and the present. Oberyn, Tomas, the scouts, they were as much the realm as any prince. I will find my own road through it, Jon said quietly. Between. Oberyn lifted his cup in a small salute. Then may it be a road with less blood than the ones before it, he said. Though I would not wager heavily on that. They drank. Later, when Jon lay on his bedroll under the stars, the sounds of the camp settling around him, he felt the weight of the day and of the words spoken settle into his bones. He did not sleep easily. When he did, the dreams came again. But this time, the wolves and dragons were not alone. A sun pierced by a spear burned briefly in the sky, then dimmed, as if content to watch. At the edge of the dream, a pale sword lay in the snow, its hilt shaped like a falling star. A hand, not his, not yet, reached for it. They parted at dawn. The sky was a pale wash of color, the harshness of the day not yet risen. Dew, rare and precious here, clung in small beads to the sparse scrub, catching the first weak light. Oberyn's camp folded itself with a discipline that spoke of long miles ridden. Tents came down, poles strapped to pack horses, cooking gear stowed. The sand snakes moved through it all like bright knives, efficient and unhurried. Try not to die, Oberyn said to Arthur as they clasped forearms. If you must, do it in a way that makes a good story. I tire of dull deaths. I will keep that in mind, Arthur replied. And you, Prince, try not to poison anyone important without warning my sister first. It upsets her embroidery. Oberyn laughed, sharp and delighted. You hear that, Snow? He said, turning to Jon. Your knight once had a sense of humor. Do not let him convince you he was always this grim. I've seen it, Jon said. It surfaces in brief, terrifying flashes. Obara snorted. Nymeria smirked. The youngest of the sand snakes, Tyene, offered Jon a shy smile and a small, wrapped parcel. For the road, she said. Dates, and some of Maester Castle's herbs. For bruises, and worse. Jon took it, surprised. Thank you, he said. I hope not to need the second. Hope is a fine seasoning, she replied, but pack salt as well. Oberyn exchanged a few hurried words with Obara. Something about spears and chances to test them again. Then swung into his saddle with more swagger than strictly necessary. Vaetha's roads will talk of this, he said. Bandits burned from their holes, princes in the hills, ghosts with swords. My father will sigh himself hoarse. Make sure he breathes between sighs, Arthur said. Dorne will need the lords who still think of grain as much as spears. They rode. At the fork where the track split, one path bending toward Vaeth, the other curling back toward Starfall, Arthur drew rein. Jon's horse snorted, stamping once. Last chance, Oberyn called from his own path. You could come with me, eat well, fight interesting people, seduce whomever you like. I have enough trouble with one boy, Arthur said. I do not need a camp full of them. Oberyn placed a hand over his heart in mock affront. Wound me, Ser Armand, he said. Very well. Go to your pale cliffs and your salty air. When you decide you have had enough of goats and grievances, Dorne will still be here, watching, waiting. His gaze flicked to Jon one last time. Remember what we spoke of, he said. About names, about roads, about men who will try to pull you into songs of their choosing. Jon nodded. I will, he said. And if you ever need a sword that looks north before it swings, you know where to send a raven. Oberyn's smile thinned, but did not fade. Careful, Snow, he said. Offers like that have a way of being taken up. He lifted his spear in a brief salute, then turned his horse. The Martell entourage flowed after him, a bright, sinuous line of color and steel winding into the hills. Arthur nudged his own mount toward the Starfall track. Jon fell in beside him. Behind them, Tomas and the scouts rode in loose formation, their conversation low and intermittent. The dust from Oberyn's horses hung in the air for a time, then drifted away. For a while, they rode in silence. Do you regret it? Arthur asked at last. Regret what? Jon said. Not taking his offer, Arthur replied. Not throwing yourself fully into Dorne's embrace. Their spears are sharp. Their wine is strong. Their grudges are long. Jon considered. He would have used me, he said. Gently, perhaps. Cleverly. But still. As a piece on some board I do not yet see. And you object to being useful? Arthur asked, one eyebrow lifting. I object to being useful without choosing how, Jon said. When I am ready to point myself at something, I would rather my hand be on the hilt, not someone else's fingers wrapped around mine. Arthur's mouth curved. You begin to sound like a man rather than a boy, he said. It is unsettling. Does that mean, Jon asked, that you will stop treating me like a child you must hide from every shadow? Arthur's gaze went ahead, toward where the hills thinned and, beyond them, the faint glimmer of a river might mark the road to Starfall. It means, he said slowly, that we will begin to speak more plainly of what comes next. Jon's pulse quickened. The North, he said. The North, Arthur agreed. Not tomorrow, not next week, but soon. You have seen Dorne's hills. You have stood in Vath's hall, in Starfall's yard, in Oberyn's camp. You have killed men and chosen not to. You have heard your name in the mouths of those who do not know its full weight. He inhaled. The air smelled of dust, of distant water, of something else. Faint but there. A chill, perhaps, that had no business in this heat. When next the wind shifts, Arthur said, and brings you the scent of snow, we will follow it. Jon turned his head north. He could not see the wall, of course. It lay hundreds of leagues away, beyond rivers and forests and fields he had never walked. But in his mind, it was as clear as if he stood before it. The long, looming line of ice, the darkness beyond. Two worlds had shaped him thus far. Dorne, with its heat and subtlety. The hidden mountain, with its swords and secrets. A third awaited. Ice and wolves and a hall of gray stone where a quiet man sat with a promise heavy in his chest. Between them, Jon Snow rode, neither one thing nor the other. For the first time, with the road stretching ahead and the dust of princes behind him, he felt less like a mistake and more like a bridge. The dawn was fully risen now, the sun clearing the hilltops. Its light fell on his face, warm, unrelenting. He did not flinch.